And this is an organization that connects university researchers to industry practitioners like Vertiv. And one of the things they do is they get some of the management, the process, the minutia, the best practices between these very different organizations working together. Again, wide swath across the industry and various industries. And so you get best practices that for parts of our world that are changing faster than data centers. Yes, there are. And some that have learned some really valuable lessons from history. They're still participating. And so all it does is make us better. Hi, this is Greg Ratcliff, and you're watching the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast.
Welcome, Data Center friends. It's Joshua Feinberg from the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast, and I'm thrilled to have a very special guest joining me today. I'm welcoming Greg Ratcliff, who is the Chief Innovation Officer of Vertiv in Ohio. Greg, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Josh. I've been looking forward to this.
Likewise. So I'm super curious to understand how you've ended up in this place in your career where you're leading innovation for Vertiv, a huge worldwide leader in all things related to infrastructure and energy and IT and critical facilities.
Yeah, our company started in Central Ohio in the mid-'60s as the Liebert Corporation, making sure that mainframes had great cooling, precision cooling, and fantastic clean power. Over the years, we were acquired by some major players. One of them was Emerson Electric. But in 2016, we went out on our own, and my boss, our Chief Technology Officer, Steve Liang, literally grabbed me by the collar and said, "Hey, do this innovation thing for me." So it's been a fantastic journey. In the past, our company has been, our superpower is execution and getting things done, and to improve that to the next level, being ready for technology as it changes was my assignment. And been doing that a few years now, and man, is it a lot of fun.
So you really get to be in charge of the entire entity's crystal ball, looking ahead, thinking ahead of what needs to be in the roadmap 2, 3, 5 years out from now.
Yes, but unlike engineering teams that are always working on the next version or the version after that, part of our process that we've developed is to hand that technology off to the engineering teams. Maybe before it's commercially ready, but when it's time to get the talent engaged with the new technology. So it's always a dating event, and then there's the breakup. In fact, just today, we turned over some technology to the engineering team. It's like, you guys are all over this. It's now yours to own. We're here to help you. We'll continue investing in the university that's advancing this technology, but it's yours to own now.
So that actually brings up a really interesting question. What actually is the typical life cycle of how something makes it from an idea all the way to a commercial product with Vertiv?
That's a great question. Let's see. So for lithium batteries in data centers, it was kind of a long journey. We had lithium batteries in the labs for maybe 10 years before the industry and commercial folks were ready to take advantage of it in their facilities. A lot had to change, and it wasn't just a retrofit to older systems. So that took a decade. Liquid cooling for AI, just a few years. I mean, it wasn't very long ago. This was only in the labs and a few experiments for us. And the three major chip manufacturers got hold of us. It's like, we're going to run out of cooling with air. What do you have? And so it went from concept to what we call high commercial readiness in just a few years. And we've seen some of the results of that early investment already.
So that's super interesting to get a window into how some of these widely popular technologies have made it from idea into the website is being available with commercial products. Is there like an ecosystem? Do you get together from time to time with other innovative officers? How does the collaboration typically work across companies?
Yeah, for us being kind of rookies in the practice of innovation management, I joined a few organizations, and I didn't want to risk our precious few dollars with failure either. So in 2017, we joined a couple organizations. One of them's called Innovators, where there's an 8 after the V. It's kind of a global group of innovation leaders from a wide swath of industries. And then we talk about process and the challenges. And then top of mind is a group that has been fantastic called UIDP, the University Industry Demonstration Project. And Tony, the founder, said, I started this as a demonstration, but I've been doing it for 15 years now. And this is an organization that connects university researchers to industry practitioners like Vertiv. And one of the things they do is they get some of the management, the process, the minutia, the best practices between these very different organizations working together. Again, wide swath across the industry and various industries. And so you get best practices that for parts of our world that are changing faster than data centers. Yes, there are. And some that have learned some really valuable lessons from history. They're still participating. And so all it does is make us better.
So when you think about connecting the dots with research going on in academia, I imagine the first contacts are probably pretty seasoned professors with big research grants, but in those labs, more than likely there's grad students and perhaps even some undergraduates. With that in mind, if you were to meet up with someone who is relatively early on in their career journey, maybe they're still in high school or freshman or sophomore in college, and they're contemplating doing something related to digital infrastructure or critical facilities or data centers, and they're not leaning towards an engineering career. They don't see themselves being a developer. They're interested in more of these client-facing roles. What kind of advice would you offer to someone in that situation?
Yeah, I get those quite a bit. So outside of engineering, there's lots of room for coders, but there's also lots of room for service staff. And that does not mean you're locked in. So we have lots of our leadership. In fact, our CEO at Vertiv came from the service organization. So you can get to the highest levels through those paths. And I will put in a plug for our military and veteran employees. The large number of those come ready to work in our services organization. A little bit funny. I heard one story from a large percentage come from the Navy, and one of the things that one of them related to me not too long ago was, yeah, you're out on a ship and something fails, you have to get it working, but you can't get hurt because you don't want a Navy doctor necessarily working on you. And so that matters for data centers too. It's got to be fixed. We don't ever want to hurt anybody or get anybody injured. Yeah, I guess we have good doctors that are supporting Vertiv, but you understand.
So it's super interesting. So by the nature of how they are troubleshooting in the military, they're bringing a safety mindset that makes them even more sensitive to these issues than a typical college student, recent graduate that's entering the workforce.
Right.
Super fascinating culture. So that's someone that's early on in their career. What about someone that's mid-career, maybe that you worked with 10, 15 years ago, back in the Liebert days or Emerson, and you bump into them at a conference and kind of catching up over lunch, and they mention to you that they're feeling a little bit of a sense of stuck in their career. They're a little bit stressed out, maybe even a tinge burned out, and they're trying to figure out what their next move should be in digital infrastructure. They know for sure they want to stay in the industry, but they have no idea where to go next. They know we're in a period of rapid change. What would you tell a friend, former colleague in that situation?
Have no fear. Honestly, I think one of the things that in this innovation journey that I'd heard for years and years that I just never took as serious as I do now is that different views, different experiences, just different cultures really create the best ideas. And so they should not underestimate their deep experience that they have in whatever part of the business, even outside of data centers that they have. So don't don't have that fear, and be willing to be a rapid learner. I think what comes with a lot of experience. Here's one example. Uh, Coders that learned assembly language many years ago, like myself, you have a solid foundation on coding. And so when Python came along, it was pretty easy for me to lead a group that did some early AI and machine learning at Vertiv. And so those solid foundations can be transferable. And there's everything. There's everything in data centers. There's operations, there's service, there's sustainability challenges, there's efficiency, there's process, like you wouldn't believe, that has to be maintained and updated. So the data center world is an ecosystem of society at large, I think. Oh, and I can't forget logistics.
Yeah, it's interesting, an ecosystem of society at large, because when we think about the data center space, we think about the operators and the technology and the facilities companies and construction and real estate, like 50, 55 different distinct business models. I think probably one of the bigger challenges when someone is brand new to the industry is actually understanding beyond where their employer is in the ecosystem and all the connected Legos that bring it all together.
Yep, exactly.
Greg, do you think that there's certain industries that are especially conducive for a talent pipeline for working in something related to development or innovation for a company like Vertiv?
Well, I already mentioned the military. That certainly that matters. I was chatting with one of my kids, and I said, the quality mindset that exists in finance and banking, it is everywhere in the data center space. You don't. How did he say it? You don't get to make a mistake when you're a teller of counting out the money wrong. You can't make that mistake. There's no patience for that when you're touching somebody's money. And so high quality roles where near perfect quality and reliability is required is a mindset. It's not necessarily something that is not a transferable skill. I think about our engineers and the way that they're working on designs and the extreme measures they go to be mean to a product, even for things that are unlikely, comes from that quality mindset. This can never fail. This operation can never fail. This service event can never fail. So that's a mindset that you could pick up from lots of different career experiences.
You mentioned also you have a hobby in aviation. I imagine there's for sure parts of aviation that have that same kind of mindset.
Yeah, thanks. Well, that'll get us derailed if I'm not careful. So part of getting the internal talent ready is everything STEM. If you think about data centers broadly, and the great work with Dean and Santiago at iMasons is we concentrate on as an industry organization are concentrating on workforce development. High schools and junior colleges and colleges, we need to get them ready to come into our space. I think we have over 1,000 openings right now, just to put a plug in for it. And so encouraging STEM related studies is important. And like data centers, aviation, everything to do with flying, particularly smaller airplanes and training. It is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics on every flight. Yeah, that's just part of those common threads of folks that are involved in technology.
So you have a really interesting perspective on critical facilities and data centers, having spent so much of your career in this space. When you look out at the major challenges that are facing the industry right now, what do you see as the biggest problem that different stakeholders are making in this industry that you wish that you would see approaching it a little bit differently?
This sounds a little harsh, and you answer these questions with the lens you see the world through. So I'll think the way I see it is the big players will run to a geographical area and suck up all the power and water, and that causes rapid growth. It causes land grabs. And it's necessary, I suppose. Like I said, through their lens, it's necessary to put this data center in this metro area. And then the ecosystem that forms around it are the colo players and the other elements that also cause that metro to grow. Maybe there's synergies from, universities and great skills and good transportation, access to talent and resources that could actually build the data center, great weather, a good economy. All those things will make a metro a target for some of the big players. And then one of the big players goes in and somebody immediately follows them. What comes to mind is Quincy, Washington, 15 or 20 years ago. And now there's challenges with power there.
For sure. It actually reminds me of something all the way back in college economics. I think it was called Hotelling's theory, that predicts that one supermarket goes in and then the other one goes across the street. One hotel goes in and two surround it. And then before you know it, you wonder why they're all in the same intersection and why you have a CVS and a Walgreens directly across the street from each other.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah.
The Data Center Go-to-Market podcast is sponsored by DCSMI, elevating the role of sales, marketing, and go-to-market GTM professionals in the growth of the data center industry. To stay informed about upcoming episodes, make sure that you subscribe to the Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter on the DCSMI website that can be found at www.dcsmi.com. Again, that URL is www.dcsmi.com.
What's interesting about that observation too with the water and power constraints is half of the people I talk to in the data center industry are in the US, most of the other half are in Europe. And there seems to be a divergence in how to approach these issues. Is that something you've noticed in your role leading innovation with Vertiv?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And different geographies have different constraints. And there's new power coming on in certain metros, new techniques, new availability. Just recently, I heard about 3 nuclear projects that are going to happen faster than expected in the US. So that's great. In the Midwest, there's plenty of water. As long as you can plan for it, the water supply agencies and groups can provide the water that's necessary. But in the Southwest, not the case. And so other technologies have to be used for cooling. I think together that what happens a lot of times is you get plugged into a box, is like using any amount of water to reduce electricity consumption. That's why you would do it, is a bad thing. But at the same time, being more efficient with the electricity allows additional growth. So there's an efficiency element that I think might be missing when we have these discussions. I've heard the DOE is working on some standards that will be more output based, computing work per kilowatt, which would allow us to compare these different sites and take into account various resources, renewable resources, water and power, to gauge that efficiency.
Yeah, I definitely hear some of the energy and facilities folks I speak with on a regular basis cast doubt about how valid the most popular metrics are right now for measuring efficiency, and how there's a need to really rethink the stats and metrics that people are using across the board.
Right. But it was great to have that for a period of years. It allowed, there's so many techniques that have been utilized across data centers that improve the efficiency. And some of them are coming back with AI and liquid cooling. There's a new need for sensible cooling that's above the dew point in data centers, rather than have big peripheral systems, with chilled water. Is just add a little bit of cold air without condensation, and that'll improve the efficiency.
Interesting. Greg, when you think about what you work on a daily, weekly, monthly basis leading innovation, how do you envision that innovation may change over the next 2, 3, 5 years going out? What is changes about being in a chief innovation officer role for an enterprise environment?
That I may be the last of the innovation officers at Vertiv. Could be the first and the last. This world of innovation, it really took off maybe 15 years ago, and there was some great work that said this was, that companies needed this. But I see it as more in the future, combining with planning and strategy. So much of what I'm working on outside of the university space and startups is directly tied to, wow, that's a neat company. Should we consider a partnership or something even deeper? And so this thing that started as just sort of innovation and help the culture have an open mindset for anything new that adds value, that is changing to be more of a planning, strategy, execution role, which is exactly what it is. It's a project that has a different kind of outcome. Innovation projects have an outcome of maturing, so that, at least in our world, of maturing so that engineering can own it and take it. And then the new product development process carries it all the way to customers. So the closer those get, the lines will be blurred, and that's a great thing.
Actually brings up a really interesting related question. For most of the innovation projects that you've worked on the last several years that have been successful, have the inventors doing the research reached out to you in the same way they might reach out to a VC looking for a commercial partner? Are you actively scouting? Do you run into innovations just by walking the floor of an expo? Is it publications? Where do some of the ideas come from that ultimately lead to something that's prioritized for innovation?
Yeah, so the grand experiment at Vertiv was based on a textbook from Gina O'Connor at RPI, and Gina thought that folks that come up with ideas within a business, within industry, need to be in the battle daily, the challenges. And so initially, what we created was a role called Scout and Liaison, and Scouts are the ones that are suffering from their problems and from a technology standpoint. And those scouts that we have, about 80 of them across the globe, those scouts bring to us ideas, so they really help with the discovery process. Also, in parallel with that establishment of scouts, the notion of just send it, mail it in, send in your ideas. We didn't want to do it this way at all. If you have 100 great ideas and a limited resources, and you only decide to execute on 5 of those ideas, you told 95 talented people that their idea wasn't good enough. And we didn't want to do that. So our approach is around 9 challenges we have for the business. And part of our team's job in the innovation office is to connect ideas together and then let them pivot a little bit so that nearly all of them get funded in some way. Maybe not today, maybe a little bit later on. Here's one example. We're pretty far away from building the infrastructure for quantum computing. They're going to require a different kind of infrastructure than AI. But some of those ideas and challenges are flowing in from the lab students that we are sponsoring, from the capstones in the universities we're sponsoring, some of our own guys that spend Saturday mornings reading about quantum computing. And so the discovery process is pretty rich. And one of those challenges is, how do we get ready for really cold cooling?
So it sounds almost like these scouts draw a little bit of a parallel to a professional sports scout. They're deeply embedded in the ecosystem. They have they have strong instincts on what looks valuable and strong degree of skepticism on what could just be hype early on, and you're kind of using that as the first layer of filtering for what makes it to the next step.
Yeah, that's good. I was thinking of them more as trail scouts, but you're right. Maybe the big difference is they are active practitioners. They are coding, they are designing, they are doing electrical circuits as part of their daily role, or they're leading product teams. So there are some leadership scouts too.
You mentioned AI a couple times. I'm really curious, when you think about your routine today versus 2, 3, 4 years ago, have you seen much impact on where you spend your time now because of AI?
You know, early on, I installed Grammarly on my machine, and oh my, has it found some awful language that I have typed. Not that I would go to HR, but I would type something out, being deeply involved in the technology, and Grammarly would like get really confused, and it was teaching me to be a little better with language, particularly the written word. So I use Grammarly even on my phone anymore. So that AI tool I use a lot. I think there's this other change that's occurring right in front of me, and it's a little bit subtle. Is there's chat and some some of the other tools that are out there. I find that I'm looking for specialized tools, and I'm getting to the point where we're willing to pay for them. One of those, for example, I won't name who it is, but they have an IP tool. And so they help me search if there's a patent on a topic. I could do that with one of the broad systems, but then it shows me all kinds of things that are not IP related. And it misunderstands sometimes. Another one is, I'm always a little fearsome with the results. It's like, where did you get these? Is there a way I can learn more without asking another question? So I might be stuck into the Google link world. How we all use Google is we'll type something in, we'll get a bunch of links, which will then refine our next query. And so I found myself doing that with AI and ran across one of them. Maybe not the biggest by far, but Perplexity always tells me where it found its data. And that allows me to teach others better about here's an article on it. Here's 3 or 4 papers on this topic. Here's where this new technology is going. Here's the conference, presentations. So I think those kind of tools that can give us references are better, at least for my use.
And that also, if there's any sense whatsoever that the AI is hallucinating, show your work, show your sources, allows you to click through and see if that's right, where it actually came from. And I think over time, as the models continue to get better, it'll be less of a factor, but early on, especially. And seemingly with what you do with the overlap of innovation and academia, it would seem to be essential to be able to have those citations there.
One of the other things, we have several AI pilots going on at Vertiv for coding. And initially there's a lot of press around, hey, this is going to eliminate jobs, or jobs are going to change so much that you won't be able to do that job anymore. And it sort of, we were all in a team together. We were learning about this tool, and there was a little bit of resistance. And I said, look, if we can get this project finished in half the time, I've got another 10 projects right behind them. It's not going away. If we could have the time to release our products that are in the pipeline, that would be awesome, because we would release more products and the improvements would come faster. It wouldn't be any less. That percentage that you spend on marketing and coding and engineering, those ratios have stood the test of time. So now what you get out of those should improve forever. And so the AI partner coding and some of the other experiments we're doing, that just helps people be more efficient. And then finally, I don't know why I remembered it, but I was at an AI conference not too long ago, and they were talking about one of the legal firms is what they used to do to, maybe I will use the word punish the attorneys, or break in the newbies, is have them review contracts. And so with AI, the contract reviews happen in just a few seconds. So what used to be just awful work that attorneys had to do is just so much easier now.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely going to be some amount of reshuffling going on, but there's also certain careers where, as you mentioned, a cycle that might have taken 3 years gets reduced to a couple of weeks. There's still a need for a cycle. And the thing is, too, is if your company uses these tools and others in the space aren't, then there's a definite difference for the speed and level of degree of competition and democratizing the whole process.
Yep.
We're leveling the playing field. Greg, do you have any thoughts on any podcasters, YouTubers, other experts in this space in the data center industry that you think would be especially helpful to interview next for this podcast?
I talked about iMasons. I think you should grab somebody from the iMasons group. There's great work thinking about the future, how in a non-competitive way we can work together to make a little bit less of an impact on the world, and to teach others about the good part of all this data center stuff. So I'm happy to connect you with Santiago or Dean Nelson.
Greg, this has been fascinating. I really appreciate you taking the time to join me on the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast. If someone wants to connect with you or learn more about what you're doing, is LinkedIn a good channel for you?
It sure is. It sure is. You can find me, Gregory W. Ratcliff.
Awesome. And if someone wants to follow what Vertiv is doing specifically with its innovation, is there a certain social media channels or a certain part of the website that will give someone a good window into what's coming next with Vertiv?
Yep. Regularly, I post both on LinkedIn and X with the tags innovation and Vertiv. Like I said, I believe that this innovation is a broad practice, not just narrow for our industry. We can help each other throughout all kinds of verticals, not just in the data center space.
Awesome. Innovation is the future. Being able to figure out what to do next, what to prioritize, how to make it all work together in a complex ecosystem, and really admire the work that you're doing with Vertiv. It's made an enormous difference in helping to move Vertiv and the industry forward.
Thanks. This has been a blast. Thanks so much, Josh.
You're welcome. I've been speaking with Greg Ratcliff, who is the Chief Innovation Officer at Vertiv in Ohio. Greg, really appreciate your time today.
The Data Center Go-to-Market podcast is sponsored by DCSMI, elevating the role of sales, marketing, and go-to-market GTM professionals in the growth of the data center industry. To stay informed about upcoming episodes, make sure that you subscribe to the Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter on the DCSMI website that can be found at www.dcsmi.com. Again, that URL is www.dcsmi.com.